Welcome back to Doodling with Purpose, your at-home guide week by week learning hieroglyphics because, hey, fun thing to learn at home, whether you're stuck at home, you want to be home, or you wish you could be home. Today, we're going to talk about some issues with language and when language doesn't exactly do what we think it does, or rather doesn't communicate or isn't written the way that instinctively we wish it would be. And this is something you find in almost every language. All languages have rules, and English is definitely one of those languages that is known for having exceptions. So, just like that, with hieroglyphics, there are exceptions to rules, and it's important to first learn the rules so then you can learn how to break them or when they need to be broken. So let's jump back and do a little review of some of the different ways that hieroglyphics are written. So one thing we've talked about is change of order, which can be done for prestige, which is called honorific transposition, or for spacing. So this word we looked at last week, which is written netter hum being person and netter being gods. So this word would be translated into person of the gods or priest. You can see kind of how Egyptian does that because there's no of or the. Well, this has honorific transposition. Because netter is a holy word, gods, it is placed before the glyph which is the club, but it is pronounced after it. So, or it's still netter, but netter being a holy glyph, a glyph that means God, because we're honoring that glyph, because it's holy, we are placing it first, still pronouncing it after, but this is why it's called honorific transposition. Let's look at another example of this. So here is the word Ra-mi. Ra the sun, and me being the jug with a handle that we learned quite a while ago. So in this case, the sun glyph, which can actually be also pronounced to mean day, but in this case Ra, it's a holy word. And the word me is not. Me is the word for like, meaning to like something or like someone. And Ra, well, Ra is the name of an Egyptian god, so Ra basically means Ra.
So then, mono means one, and rail means rail.
So much like the previous example, we have honorific transposition, where Ra, as a holy name for a god, is placed first before me, but it's still pronounced or read the correct way. So, or rather, me comes first. So it's me Ra, meaning like Ra, not Ra me. Ra is placed before to honor Ra. All right, another example of this is when this is done for, call it not artistic purposes, but spacing. This is a very common word in hieroglyphics. You're going to see this word all the time. It's pronounced ma'ah. Now, if we looked at it literally, it looks like ma-ir-ah-ah, right? Well, again, this is a example of transposition. In this case, it's spacing transposition. The ear, the I, which is pronounced ear, is actually a determinative and is moved from the end, where determinatives usually are, to the middle for spacing reasons. So this is actually the word ma'ah, or if you were going to pronounce all the letters, ma'ah-ah-ah. But as we've learned, when you have single consonants that follow a double consonant, you cancel out these single consonant letters. So those extra A's at the end are not pronounced. And this is the word meaning the verb to see. Hence the I is a determinative for seeing, not a letter pronounced ear or ar. So it's moved for spacing reasons, and it's very common, this word. So it's one of those you just kind of have to memorize, and you'll know that if when you see this, it means to see. All right, now here's a very important word. This is the word neswut. And I know it doesn't look like that, and so I want to break down and explain why and what it means. So if you were going to read it literally, it would look like sw, the reed, t, the loaf, and n, the water sign. But for honorific transposition, sw, which is the glyph for king, is moved to the front. But just because it's moved to the front for honorific transposition doesn't mean we read it first. So it's read n-swt, king, reading the N first, then the read. N-swt, king. It's a very important word and definitely one to memorize. So we've moved the read from the back to the front to honor king, because king is a holy, or, there's prestige there, but we've pronounced it at the end. All right, here's another one. This is a different type of rule. So this is the word hunukt. Now, I know it doesn't look like that, and again, I'm going to break down why it's pronounced that way. So this is the word for beer. Remember how we learned beer last week? That's the determinative for beer at the very end. It's a jug. Pretty easy to draw, which is why I didn't do a doodling out for you, but you can, practice it on your own. So it looks like this would be read, if it was done in the order, as hooked. The H, the flax, the K, the hill, and the T, the loaf. There's actually a silent N that's not represented. So it's actually pronounced hunkt with an N in there. Why is the N not written? It's just one of those things. It's just kind of part of Egyptian where there are some things called defective writing, where a letter is missing, but because the word is very common, in this case the word beer, you just know that this is how it's written. It's kind of like the whole I before E except after C in English, except of course there's like 1,000 exceptions to that. So defective writing is very similar to this in hieroglyphics. You just have to know that when you see the word for beer, there is an N that's put in there. So, yep, just like in English, you have kind of the same weird exceptions that you have in hieroglyphics, and you just kind of get used to it and kind of go with it, if you will. Let's look at one last example of a defective writing just to kind of drill this home. So here is the word that looks like it should be st. And if you're confused at what that squiggly one at the bottom is, that is a determinative for desert. Pretty easy to draw, just a line with the hoops there. So if you were going to read it in order, it would look like st and then the determinative. So, the tie, the loaf, and then the symbol for desert, which actually, so this is the word desert. But much like the word for beer, this is a defective writing. It has a silent milk jug with handle, which you remember from the word like means, or it's pronounced me, M-Y, or M-I. So this glyph is not seen, but it is still pronounced in the middle. So the correct way to pronounce this word is smeet, smeet. And when you have a silent word or letter like that, usually you put it in parentheses when translating to show that it's there, but it's just not written. So there's the milk jug that's not there, and when writing out the transliteration, you would write S, and then in parentheses, M-I, and parentheses T. Smite, desert. So you can think you get smited in the desert. All right, I know that's a lot of rules and a lot to take in, but we're moving along and we're definitely building up, and I promise we're building up to even more sentences. Hey, we even learned a new verb this week. So do make flashcards for all of these words as we keep building them up. It's definitely going to help as we go. Next week, we're going to jump into contractions. Yep, there's contractions in Egypt, hieroglyphs just like English, and some of them are very important, and it makes reading easier. If you like this video, do give it a like and a subscription, and a thumbs up tells YouTube to share with more people. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week for more doodling with purpose.